Hello, what's the crack? Welcome back to Belfast. This week we've got another episode of Carpool-itics. Me trying to be smart and doing a play on words of carpool. But yeah, this week it's with Paul Loughran. So Paul Loughran's a good friend of mine. We spent the summer in DC in 2014, and yeah, he's just a great guy and very active in a number of different things that are very close to my heart as well, and things I'd be passionate about, like homelessness and, you know, basically looking out for the little guy kind of. So I'll not talk too much. We had a really good chat about housing. We had a chat about homelessness in Belfast, and of course we discussed Brexit and a lot of interesting connotations of Brexit as well for Northern Ireland, and we chatted about Paul's view and everything. But yeah, I found it was really interesting chat, so I'll not speak much further. Here is my chat with Paul Loughran. Okay, so this week I'm back in my car talking to strangers I picked up off the street. No, I'm kidding. I'm here with Paul Loughran. Paul, if you want to introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Paul Loughran. I'm a student at Queen's.
For about 100 years.
For nearly 100 years. I've been involved in kind of housing activism for the past few years, and I think that's probably what we'll be chatting about today.
Yeah, so, yeah, as Paul says, one of his main passions and something that's becoming more alarming, and it kind of links in with the issues we have with like PIP and basically just all the kind of draconian laws that the Conservatives bring in. Paul's a big activist for like housing rights, so you've joined, or you're like an activist for Acorn, isn't it?
Yeah.
In South Belfast.
So I set up a South Belfast branch of Acorn. Acorn, it's a kind of English renters union. It took the name from an original American brand. It was a few decades ago, but that kind of closed up recently. But it's very big in England, so they've gotten like branches in like Manchester, Birmingham, Bristol and stuff. They're quite big, and the idea is that renters pay a monthly small fee. It's kind of what you can afford, and in return we provide you sort of support in terms of like basic legal advice. If any disputes with your landlords, we can act on your behalf. If you need to take a small claims court procedure, we can give you advice, we can support you, we can give you money towards it, that sort of stuff. Mainly, we've only started about 2 months ago in South Belfast, and we've had big successes. So one of the things we were focusing on originally was the issue of letting fees. So it's kind of the fees whenever you're renting a house. Letting agents come off of these fees, maybe they call them admin fees, application fees, referencing fees, whatever they call them. So we've seen these fees charged from anything from about 50 to 100 odd pound per person. And when you think of maybe a property is 5-6 people, that's talking about £700.
Yeah.
And when I was one of the VPs in the Students' Union, I took a legal case which ended up lasting 2 years, and we argued that these fees were illegal as a result of a 1986 law, and the judge agreed. So basically it effectively banned these fees. But a lot of letting agents just ignored this and continued to charge fees. So one of the things we did with Acorn was we put pressure on them by we sent them all an email demanding that they stop charging them, and the ones that didn't, we slowly started working our way down and sent them an email saying, well, we're going to be picketing outside your organisation next week. Slowly but surely, the first kind of few of them backed down before we even got the chance to do a picket.
Yeah.
Just an email and a threat of a picket. And then we actually started getting in the process where people started calling it bluff, so we actually did pickets. But by the time we got there, set up the picket, they would back down. So it was quite
was there one you got to and it was already like?
Yeah, we got the one on Lisburn Road, and he just watched us walk up the road with pickets. And then as soon as I walked up, he was just standing. I was like, "All right, mate, would you like to chat?" And he goes, "Very much so." So we walked in, and within 2 minutes, he was right. We'll stop charging. So, you know, we've only been going for like 10 weeks at this point, and already, when you think of the wins we've had, we're talking about several hundred thousands of pounds put back in the tenants' pockets. So we've got all these organisations that have stopped, and that's probably a conservative figure because these guys are charging quite a lot to a lot of people.
Yeah.
So we've got them stuff. So we're focusing kind of that there, and we're focusing on other issues. So we're kind of building a name for ourselves with letting agents. So to give you an example, girl joined the other day. She hadn't had a boiler for 9 days. It's broke, and the letting agent just kept saying, "Oh, we're going to get it fixed. We're going to get it fixed." And she had enough, and she joined us, and we contacted the letting agent, and within a couple of hours it was fixed because they're kind of Leads have never kind of experienced this in recent times, where tenants are actually coming together and forming unions and kind of being active together, because it's easy for them to kind of fuck over. Am I allowed to curse on this?
If you want.
I've got a potty mouth and didn't mean to do that. He can bleep me out if he wants. You can kind of screw over. Cut that out. You can screw over one tenant. It's quite easy to screw over one tenant, but it's not quite easy to screw over 20 who are standing outside your organisation picketing. And we've had great success, like in terms of some of the English branches. What they'll do is, like, if they have a landlord that's really like digging their heels in and really screwing someone over, they'll find out where they live, and they'll flyer and knock their doors to their neighbours and tell them what of a scumbag they're being.
I suppose knocking on people, find out where people live and knocking on their doors here is a bit different historically, but
well, most of them have a public on their directorship of their companies, and if you think of, people's homes are being ruined, I don't think it's unfair to go to someone else's home and say, fix my house.
I've definitely, like that apartment I'm in now, like we definitely paid, I think it was a smaller fee than the one before, but we lived in Adelaide Street, and I think we property lets NI.
Mm-hmm.
I think I don't know if you are picketed them, maybe I'm just calling them out here, but we definitely paid some ridiculous application fee, and it's not even guaranteed. It's not like you get it back if you don't get the house. They charge that, and they were like, this is non-refundable, and I don't know why they charge
we've
that,
seen some organisations, which we're going to definitely clamp down on, they'll do a thing where it's kind of like London, where they'll line 10 people up to the property, and only one of them get it, but they take the application fees, whatever they're called, take them off all of them. You think of the money they'll be making off that? That's shocking. It's a really disgraceful process. It's kind of the problem with the minute is that it's a civil. If someone's paid these fees, it's a civil kind of action to get them back. So because we have no Stormont at the minute, there hasn't been a minister to properly enforce my test case, because they haven't really appointed a body or whatever to enforce it. So we're kind of left in this limbo where the only option is for public pressure in these organisations to stop, or for every single person that's ever been charged them to take a legal case, which obviously you need money, and it's only small claims, but it still costs money and time. But we've found a lot of agents, if you just go and ask them and threaten legal action, they'll give you your money back, because they know they don't want this up in court.
Has there been anybody? I seen one recently. You were sitting in one of their offices near Queen's. Did they cave in, or have they still?
Every single organisation that we've contacted or done any action so far has changed. Yeah, they've stopped charging them.
Did they not call the police or something? Who was that?
Look, the thing is, as well, is that a lot of these organisations don't want any bad attention drawn towards what they're doing, because a lot of this is very, very dodgy stuff. Because we've had whistleblowers and all tell us from within companies that these fees aren't going through the taxman. These fees are usually not advertised for start, so they don't publicise they're doing it. They'll usually be collected in cash, separately to deposits, and separately to whatever else is on thing, and they're always taken in cash, so it's usually not for the tax book. So the organisations usually back down pretty quickly, because they don't want attention drawn to what they're doing, especially now that they know that these things are illegal.
Yeah, it's dodgy. So obviously you're making ground there. Another thing you've worked with in the past is homelessness, and obviously that kind of links in with the kind of how toxic kind of landlords and the price of rent and everything, and the cost of living in Northern Ireland. It's crazy when you walk through Belfast and you just see the sheer number of homeless people now. It's sad. Dublin Road, I walked every single day going to work, and used to work on the Dublin Road, and the amount of homeless people there is it's tragic.
Yeah, it's a direct result of government policy, austerity, and that's north and south. Basically the EU forced the southern government to legally implement austerity, and the Tories implemented on the UK of their own backs, because that's austerity. Yeah. Any basic economist can tell you austerity doesn't work. You're taking money out of the system, and it takes money out of the system, if you know what I mean. And the only ever result of austerity is that the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. That's the only ever result of austerity. It doesn't work. It's failed. It's a false economy. And you look at these draconian policies, and I know you said at the start about the Tories implementing universal credit and PIP, but it wasn't the Tories that implemented universal credit and PIP here. It was Sinn Féin, the DUP, and Alliance.
Yep.
They directly voted it in. The Tories, welfare is a devolved matter in Northern Ireland Assembly, so Tories had no power to implement it here in the north. So it had to go to a Stormont vote, and the Stormont parties could have said no, but they didn't. They had another option. The common line is now that Sinn Féin say we had no other option. Of course they had an option. They had an option to say no.
Yeah.
The whole reason it went to a vote was because it had to go to a vote, and they had the option to say no. So Sinn Féin, DUP, and Alliance voted for this, and their big win at the time was they said, well, we've got mitigation, so we're going to be much better than the UK. But the mitigations only last for 2 years. So what we've got now is a system where we're feeling the brunt of universal credit and PIP, but we're not feeling the full brunt, and we're not going to feel the full brunt until about 2020, which means that in 2020 we're going to be in a really dire situation. And universal credit and PIP is so bad that even in England the Tories have had to back down on a lot of things, and I think they're in the process of kind of trying to freeze it at the minute because the public pressure put on them has just been massive, because it's such a disgraceful system. You have people not being paid for 5 weeks.
Yeah.
You have people being sanctioned because they missed a phone call. You have people being forced to look for jobs 40 hours a week, giving them a job of looking for jobs. And you have people like in this PIP assessment, it replaced DLA, so Disability Living Allowance. So
Yep.
DLA was you were coming in to get assessed about your disability, and they provide support for you. PIP is now saying, we know you're disabled, but we're trying to see how disabled you are. So you'll have people being brought in who have no legs, and they're being asked, essentially, have you still got no legs? It's absolutely disgraceful. You've been given these degrading, humiliating assessments, and people being stripped of benefits they're entitled to.
Yep.
They're more entitled to, especially if you're disabled and you need them. But then if you look at universal credit, that's basically your job seeking allowance or whatever. People are being sanctioned for the stupidest reasons ever. I've seen someone that was sanctioned £10 a day because they missed a phone call. It was they rang them at 9:30 in the morning and they missed it. So sanctioned £10 a day.
Is that £10 taken off, or is that £10?
And it's a set thing. You can't appeal it or whatever. It just goes set thing and for like 9 months or whatever, and there's no turning it back. Like, this is directly increasing poverty and homelessness. And I just seen an article there before it came out on BBC that says there's been a noticeable increase in people being forced to eat from bins as a direct result of universal credit. Like, this is 2018.
Disgusting.
The UK is one of the richest economies in the world, but that's the whole thing. When you look at economies and GDP, all that's measuring how much wealth is in the country. It's not measuring who has the wealth. So you can look at a country and say, well, GDP's up 5% this year. It just means rich people are getting richer.
Yeah, I was at a thing about Brexit last night, and somebody made the point that people keep saying that people's wages are going up by 4%, but in reality inflation's went up and everything so much so that the actual wage increase, and that's for people in good jobs, is minimal. But it's worrying. I had spoken to somebody last week who works with one of the political parties, and they were saying that they had a case where someone went in for a PIP meeting, and they had the severe Down syndrome, and basically their only response to anything, you could ask them absolutely anything, and they would say, I'm fine, or it's fine. And they went through, they didn't have somebody with them, they went ahead when the person was on their own, and then they just kept asking them, so how do you feel, do you feel like your disability hinders you, whatever questions they ask, but the answer every time that man gave was, I'm fine, because that's all he says, and they wrote that down, and he got 0 points for PIP.
Yeah, it's absolutely disgraceful. And what was I going to say there? I forgot what I was going to say. You seen there come out the other day that Stormont had spent £1,000 on cakes to celebrate the rollout of the system. Imagine celebrating the rollout of the system. It's absolutely disgraceful. And it's important to say as well, this whole societal issue of welfare reform is promoted by the right. This whole idea of we didn't reform the benefit system because people are cheating it. People are cheating the benefit system. When you look at the actual amount estimates of people that